less than a week ago at Mining Disrupt, where Larry accurately predicted the market turned down literally 10, 20%. He said, hey, we could have a 20 to 30% correction, and Bitcoin was going to go down with it.
This is probably the first clear example of Bitcoin uncoupling from the market, right? In case people haven't had the time to listen to it, was that Treasury Secretary Bessent had an interview with Tucker Carlson a couple days ago, and he said, Bitcoin is emerging as digital gold, a store of value.
So what do you think now that we're at the beginnings of what I think the cycle you predicted, the 10, 20, 30%, correction coming in the markets, what do you see the rest of the year looking like?
So I think we're still in a 4-year cycle, and I think 140 is the next stop.
미국의 대표적인 투자자이자 펀드 매니저인 레리 레파드는 거시 경제 분석가로 활동하고 있는 인물입니다. 통화 정책의 실체와 인플레이션의 위험, 사운드 머니, 비트코인의 필요성에 대해 날카롭게 고찰하며 비트코인 투자 펀드를 운영 중입니다. 또한 현재 금융 시스템은 신뢰를 잃었고 그 해답은 탈중앙화된 디지털 자산에 있다고 주장하며 비트코인을 강력히 옹호 중이죠. 이런 그가 현재 미국의 경제 붕괴 위험성과 연준의 부양책 귀환 가능성을 언급하며 앞으로 비트코인은 다른 경제 시장과 분리될 것이라고 얘기합니다.
And he's a gold bug, but he's recognizing that Bitcoin's emerging, right? And he's right.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that this administration has a goal and a plan, and they're sticking to it.
Yeah. Sadly, I think doing the tariffs and putting America first, I think is a great thing. But I think even Bessent and Trump aren't fully aware of, as a market watcher, what I perceive to be a process that's going to be painful and we're not done with yet. You can't solve the problems. I mean, we built these problems up over 50 years, Dante, right? I mean, we can't solve them in a weekend. We can't solve them in a week, a month, a year, maybe even one presidential term. I mean, I hope we can get things well established in the right direction by the end of this term. But I guess the point is the market reacted in a way that said, you know what? The world is going to look different, and these stocks are overvalued. We need to take them down substantially. And that process may not be done. And I want to just caution all Bitcoiners to understand that just because we had one day of non-correlation, that does not mean that, in a full-out market collapse, let's just hypothetically say that the market goes down another 10, 15, 20% next week. Not saying it will, but it could. And I think in that case, that would make it look very much like March of 2020 or September of 2008, where you get to a correlation of 1. And what that means is that everything will go down. People will sell. There'll be somebody who's leveraged that owns Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will be the easiest thing to sell, so they'll sell it.
Oh man, I love that correlation to 1 analogy that you keep on using. I think it's a good picture. It's like, if you ever been in the pool with someone who struggles to swim, and they're just grabbing for anything, and if you're close, like, you're going down with them until you grab onto the life raft, right? Until you grab onto that next thing.
And by the way, Bitcoin and gold will emerge as the life rafts because they're the thing that can't be debased, and the Fed will have to respond with massive monetary stimulus. They'll have to go quicker, harder, bigger than they did last time. And so that will be the big print. I mean, we've had 2 big prints, 08 and 2020, but this one will be even bigger. And when that, there's nothing that fuels the growth in the underlying base money that's sound, which is Bitcoin, and the older base money, which is close to being as sound, which is gold, as monetary debasement. And we're talking massive monetary debasement.
Man, I think the thing that was super interesting is, that so much of the markets are manipulated through bots and algorithms and everything else. It was sort of like the algorithms were programmed to have a reaction from Donald Trump and or Bessent that was going to be kind of, you're not going to do what you say you're going to do. Because what's crazy about this whole thing is they forecasted this tariff day on April 2nd back in February. Everybody knew the date it was coming, and it's crazy. When it happened and they did what they said they were going to do, the market sells off. And I think it's like, was the algorithm tuned to say, yeah, politicians say this, but then they do the opposite? It was so fascinating to see.
I found that exact same thing fascinating. I think 2 things. I think one, it was a bullish mindset. Just we've had so much, the markets only go up, and everyone knows that doing what they're talking about would be very bad for the market, so they won't do it. They can't do it. He's just bluffing. This is just the art of the deal with Trump. And I always kind of took the other side of that. I thought to myself, no, if he wants to, the system is broken, and the system needs to be fixed. And if you want to fix it, you might have to break some glass to do it. And my sense was, he's a gutsy guy, and he's not afraid to break glass. Look at how he's behaved politically. He's taken many stances that I know most people didn't think he could beat Hillary, and he did. And so kudos to him for sticking by his guns. And even today, and this is probably why if the market doesn't crash next week, I think there'll be a lot of talk that, well, he's still going to back off, that these tariffs aren't real. And there's some interesting things in there. I mean, I don't want to go into it in great detail, but the whole way they calculated the tariffs and they messaged it, so be it. That's the way the game is played, right? If we can, move towards sound money, all of our lives are going to get better. The world's going to be fairer. We're going to have less wars. I mean, there are incredible benefits above and beyond just number go up.
So what do you think now that we're at the beginnings of what I think the cycle you predicted, the 10, 20, 30%, correction coming in the markets, what do you see the rest of the year looking like?
So I've always said, don't trust me for market predictions because nobody ever gets them right. I can't get them right. Anyone who tells you they can is lying. But a general trend I feel comfortable with. I think that the stock market has seen its peak. I feel extremely comfortable with that. I think that based on all of the free money that boosted the stock market and created the everything bubble, that there's a very high probability that at the end of this calendar year, the stock market is substantially lower than it is now. The stock market has been the economy. The top 10% account for 50% of the spending. The top 10% own 84% of the stocks. When you take 20 or 30% off the top 10%'s retirement portfolio, guess what? They stop spending money. Yeah. They don't take trips, they don't use hotels, they don't use airplanes, they don't buy cars. They just cut back because they don't have as much money to spend. And so that leads to a recession, which then becomes reflexive because, we buy less cars, then the factory worker who makes cars gets laid off. And so I think we're headed into a downturn. It's long overdue. It's going to be painful. I'm not happy about that, but it is what it is. And then if we look at historically, and again, the book lays this out, the Federal Reserve response to this is, at some point they've been fighting inflation. They have not solved it, but they're going to declare victory, even they don't really have it. And they're going to say, gosh, unemployment's really, the Somme rule has been violated. Unemployment's going up quickly. We need to address stimulus and get things going. And Trump is going to get his wish. They're going to cut rates, and they're going to start slowly. When that's not enough, they're going to get more aggressive. When that's not enough, they're going to do QE. QE is printing money. And, there's nothing that likes printing money more than Bitcoin, right? I mean, they do that. And so I think we're still in a 4-year cycle, and I think 140 is the next stop.
And I think people underestimate the Fed's stated mandate is price stability and employment. Their third mandate that they don't talk about is that our job as the federal bank and central bank is to serve the other banks, the Wall Street banks that are member institutions of the Fed in this cabal.
The third mandate has always been healthy and continuously operating financial markets. And we know that when that is threatened, like in the March 2020 example, the 10-year went no bid. And they can't have that. In 2008, the banking system almost melted down and the ATMs weren't going to work. They couldn't have that. And so if we get to that point, I'm not sure we will get how close we'll get to that, but we could. If we get to that point, we know one thing's for certain. They will do what Neil Kashkari says. There's an infinite amount of cash in the Federal Reserve because they'll just run the printer.
레리 레파드는 현재 시장 상황이 1987년과 유사하며 시장 붕괴 가능성을 경고합니다. 시장 붕괴 시 비트코인이 다른 자산과 함께 하락할 수도 있지만 결국 비트코인과 금이 통화 가치 하락으로부터 보호해줄 구명보트와 같다고 얘기하죠. 시장이 하락할 경우 연준은 대규모 통화 부양책으로 대응할 것이며 이는 비트코인 성장에 긍정적인 영향을 미치며 비트코인의 가격은 14만 달러까지 상승할 것이라고 전망합니다. 우리는 객관적인 시각으로 투자를 해야 하고 지금 당장만 보고 투자할 게 아니라 미래를 보고 투자를 해야겠죠. 010-2472-0429 전화번호로 탈겜이 적어서 문자 보내주시면 2025년 비트코인과 코인 시장에 대한 분석, 정보들 공유해드리겠습니다. 현재 우리에게 중요한 것은 이러한 정보를 어떻게 활용할 것인가입니다. 지금까지 영상 시청해주셔서 감사하고요. 다음에 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.